All right, it's another day, so that means another Get Geekish podcast. Hooray! Right? Hooray.
Another day, another week. There you go.
Hey, don't sell us short. Bino and Derek, thanks for joining us once again for the Get Geekish podcast, where we get to discuss things that go on in here every week. And we're talking about sleep this week. It hits very close to home. That guy over there has not been getting much sleep lately for various reasons. Yeah, no. Little humans will do that to people. But sleep is an interesting concept, and some of the different ways sleep or cryogenic sleep has been portrayed in sci-fi it's a fairly fascinating topic.
It really is, and it's one of those ones where sleep is essential for human beings, right? It has been since the dawn of time, when people slept on rocks and then they slept on straw beds and then the ground, whatnot.
Straw beds came before the ground?
You know what I mean. So then you look at what we have now, with all these different mattresses that guarantee this, that'll keep you cool, that'll keep you comfort. Oh, this one's going to be hard. This one's going to be soft. You can set your own sleep number, blah, 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 blah. We haven't really progressed. I mean, yeah, those are kind of cool things, but we haven't really progressed in the advancement of sleep. Not like media has portrayed. Not yet, anyway.
There's plenty of gadgets they have out there. You go look around, as seen on TV things, there's people that have their sad lights to wake them up. There's people that have white noise machines. There's people that have twinkling sound effects and beds that move and rotate and vibrate and sleep masks and, every possible thing you possibly think, because everyone wants to get a more comfortable night's sleep. One thing that I wish I would have realized when I was a child is, as an adult, you're just always tired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't remember the last time as a kid. I remember those days when you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, wow, what a great night's sleep. I'm ready for the day. It's been 25 years since I had one of those.
I always laugh at TVs and movies whenever somebody wakes up and they don't look haggard, they don't look, tired. And even like the kids where they just hop out of bed. I don't think I ever just hopped out of bed. I don't think I was ever just like, oh, yeah, that's great. Let's go. I think I'm always woken up tired and going, oh, I could use more sleep. And then you sleep more and then you're even more tired. So,
mm-hmm. And everybody wants to get that good night's sleep, because there's different levels of sleep, because it is, like you said, one of the most fundamental things of being alive as a human is we fall asleep. If you stay up a certain period of time, you'll fall asleep eventually. But we have a routine set in. And how many times have you just wished, I wish I could just flip a switch and go to sleep? I've got a big day tomorrow. I've got a big meeting tomorrow. I can't sleep. I just need to get to sleep. And you sit there in bed arguing with yourself for 2 hours trying to get to bed.
Yeah,
and it kills you.
It would be nice just to be able to flip. I get jealous of my wife because, she'll sit there and she's like, oh, I'm so tired. Or even she's like, I'm not tired. She'll just lay in bed, close her eyes, and she'll be out. I'm like, I hate you.
See, I was able to do that for a short time in my life. Back in the radio days doing morning shows, I think I averaged about 4.5 hours of sleep a night, but it was the point that during the day, I could go to a parking lot in a store. I would actually do that after my shift. I'd have to go to the gym, and if I got there 10 minutes early, I would just turn my eyes closed, close my eyes in the car, and nap for 9 minutes. I would literally be like, okay, I got 10 minutes to here. Okay, I'll set my alarm for 8 minutes from now. Okay. But it was not healthy, and it did not feel good, but I was tired enough that it could just happen. We can throw some science in here if you want to do some learning.
Yes.
Sleepfoundation.org. An adult, 26 to 64 years old, recommended they get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. How many of you get that? I might be averaging 6 or 7 now. I've done a little bit better. But I would say most of my 20s, which is still the 7-hour range, I probably averaged 5 to 6 a night. And then kids need a lot more than that. And then once you get back to 65 or older, you need 7 or 8 hours. So you can cut one of those back a little bit. But
I always hated that, growing up, it was always frowned upon that kids would sleep in. With our generation, it was always my parents were always like, stop sleeping in, you're going to waste the day and everything like that. And I'm like, but I'm so tired. And we needed it because our bodies were, were growing. And, it was one of those ones my parents just my mom comes in with a vacuum. Time to get up. I'm like, but I want to sleep more. Yeah, you've slept enough.
Yeah, every morning by 8 or 9. You need to be out of bed. You're wasting the day. Like, but I'm tired. I had fun in the night.
Right. Yeah.
There's actually some people that have had some pretty bizarre sleeping habits, some in the past and some that still go on that actually make some interesting reads if you ever want to follow up on some of those. I mean, there's always the Leonardo da Vinci story of he was a little crazy, but he put a schedule together where he took 20-minute naps every 4 hours rather than sleeping through the night. Not sure I could pull that off.
No.
Mariah Carey claims that she has to have like 20 humidifiers and sleeps about 15 hours per night. It's a true diva, I guess. Winston Churchill, he took a 2-hour nap every day without fail. Tom Cruise has his own snore-proof snoratorium, so he can't wake anybody else up and he can't be woken up by other people's sleep noises. Eminem puts foil over his windows to block out the light. Emily Bronte, the novelist, she used to walk around in circles when she got tired, and she would just walk around in circles until she laid down and fell asleep.
Does that work?
I have no idea. I kind of want to try it. Marissa Mayer, I'm not even sure who that is exactly. She's apparently famous. Yahoo's CEO. She apparently does what I did in high school or college. She doesn't sleep much, but then she takes week-long vacations every 4 months and just sleeps pretty much the entire week to try and play catch-up.
Dang. Well, I know that I heard one story about JFK where he would sit there in a chair and hold a spoon and then kind of like doze off. And when he dropped the spoon, it would wake him up. So, that was about the right amount of time. It's like a little cat nap type of thing. And I'm like, because I could see that where we've taken a nap at like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you wake up and you're like, okay, I feel a little bit better. But then when you get that threshold that's past like 20 minutes and you wake up, if you don't get that right increment of time, as weird as it sounds, you wake up and you just feel like you are dead. You're just like, oh my God.
The nap where you don't know what year it is when you wake up?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sci-Fi is portrayed sleep because there's been a lot of stories where they've come technologically far enough along where people could sleep for mere minutes. They just plug themselves in and they recharge and everything's good to go. Or one of the biggest things is the cryo sleep, where putting people to sleep for long periods of time for things like space travel. That's just the story du jour in most sci-fi, especially if we're talking about actual human beings traveling to far off space, because you need to be traveling for months and years at a time. So being able to safely keep people in a catatonic sleep is a big deal in sci-fi. I mean, Alien and Avatar and Space Odyssey and Event Horizon, all those movies, that's kind of what they're based on. But the interesting part is there's not enough science now to make it happen for a long term for anybody, for a plethora of reasons, we'll just say. But do you think we're going to get there? Are we going to be in cryogenics chambers and you're going to be like, you know what, it's not going to be my year. Just put me on ice for a couple of years. I'll see you back in 2030.
I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get to the Demolition Man type of stuff. We might get to... And one of the things that I always think about, too, when I sleep is, in The Fifth Element, when they're going to Flushtown Paradise, they're on that little ship to get there, and they're the little pods, kind of like, some hotels in Japan have, but it hits a thing and kind of fills it up with gas, or you're out.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might get there, but as for the whole cryogenic sleep, I don't think so. I don't know, but I'm always jealous of like that instant sleep thing that happens in The Fifth Element, because I'm like, I would love to have that. If it meant putting a weird little pod thing in my room and I could get enough sleep and feel refreshed, bring it on.
You'll be one of the guinea pigs for that one?
Oh yeah, hands down. Well, I mean, you look at some of these, Fortune 500 companies and everything like that, like Google and everything, where they have the nap pods.
Mm-hmm.
Where you go in and there's no light, no sound, which is kind of cool. Or you can go to, I forgot the name of the thing, but like the hyperbolic chamber type of thing where you're floating in water and you can kind of reset your internal clock. Because, that's the thing, too, is there's so much science behind the sleep clock, the circadian rhythm and everything like that, to try to reset your sleep clock, which... that isn't even, to me, it doesn't even seem like it's 100% because it doesn't work on everybody.
I'll tell you what, you can have your gassy sleep pods. I would like to try sleeping in zero gravity someday.
Oh my God, me too.
I mean, I want to tether myself because I could also see myself as the one that I fall asleep and then every 5 minutes I get woken up because my head rams into a wall or something. But the idea of just that free-floating feeling, imagine how your neck and back would feel when there's absolutely zero gravity and everything can just go its merry way.
Well, I mean, that's why waterbeds were so popular at one point, right?
Well, that's what the theory behind them, but they ended up being far less comfortable than regular beds most of the time.
Dude, I loved my waterbed. When I was a kid, like my parents gave me one, I was like, "This is awesome!" And then I think the cat popped it, and that was the end of that. But it's one of those ones where I'm right there with you because I wonder if sleeping in 0G, it wouldn't compress your bones that much, right? You wouldn't be waking up, popping, sounding like a glow stick at a rave. You'd be like, yeah, all right, I'm all ready to go. You wouldn't be that whole like, oh my God.
Well, I suppose it depends. Like if you had to walk like if you had a anti-gravity chamber and had to walk back out, I bet you'd pop like a mother when you walked out of that thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Your body's stretched out all night and then you step back into gravity. Oh. There's that good old feeling of life.
Oh, man. Yeah, maybe you're right on that one.
I was reading a couple articles about the stuff, too, and they said that a lot of people base it off of, well, animals hibernate, so we can just make people do the same thing. But that's actually a different thing. When animals go into hibernations, their brains do this thing called torpor, where it's different from sleep. So the thought process behind researchers that have looked into the making humans hibernate, it might work as far as putting somebody to sleep for months at a time, but because the brain is not doing what animals would do, they might actually suffer from severe sleep deprivation over that 3-month time and wake up hallucinating and bat poo crazy.
That sounds like a good movie.
Because, I mean, you think of all the dreams and crazy things that go on in your head now. Imagine they did something, they messed it up, and your body is completely out cold in the sleep for 6 months, but you're stuck here with nothing but your thoughts and dreams.
Well, isn't that kind of like what happened in Demolition Man? You know, he wasn't completely under, and he remembers like people screaming on his ice block and everything like that. So like, he was there, but not. So I mean that basically make you a captive in your own body. I mean that's kind of like what a coma is, right? So basically you're in a coma. And another thing with hibernation is those animals eat a plethora of food so their body can survive through it. So
I am ready for hibernation. But if we're going with the science fiction telling the future of what could happen with sleep, then do we also need to heed some of these warnings? Because how many science fiction shows or at least story arcs are completely based off of somebody getting forgotten about or accidentally frozen or locked in a time chamber and then they wake up and it's 1,000 years have passed?
Right. Or you go in the other aspect where they wake up and they go crazy, like you were just saying, you know. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to happen. I mean, look at Futurama.
Yeah, that's an entire series based off somebody that accidentally traveled through time by getting cryogenically frozen.
Exactly.
Red Dwarf has the same thing, too.
Yeah, so, I mean, like you said, I think pretty much every staple in science fiction has done something with the sleeping, you know, and then it's always they wake up, they've been asleep for 2 years or whatever. They wake up and immediately they throw up because they got the sleep sickness or whatever it's called, space sickness. I don't remember. And so they're always, and they feel like crap afterwards. And then they're always kind of groggy for hours. And, you know, they have to you basically have to reset your body. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that part doesn't sound like, I'm like, maybe I'll just be tired. I don't know if I want to deal with that. But if it's a whole like space travel thing where I get to go see something else.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at some ones. Encino Man, one of my favorite movies from the 90s. Link gets cryogenically frozen somehow naturally. Which my small understanding of how physics works, that's not going to be plausible for anybody.
I mean, not living. Because you can look at like now where they're like, oh, we exhumed this mammoth that's pretty much intact out of the ice. You're like, but it's not alive, so...
Yeah, it's still been dead for a long time. In Aliens and Avatar, they both use Cryo Sleep for travel. Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, They use cryo sleep for long bits of travel. Passengers, that whole thing of cryogenic sleep gone a little bit wonky thanks to computers. I mean, heck, Han Solo frozen in carbonite. That's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Somebody frozen in carbonite is the Star Wars version of cryogenically frozen people.
I still look at that and go, how did he not get any of that in his lungs with his mouth open like that?
He was screaming.
Yeah.
That's why all of them get frozen going. Can't imagine that would be fairly painful. Austin Powers, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Evil goes through the time machine, and so does Austin Powers.
See, I don't know. Like, would you do it?
If I didn't have a family and stuff and friends and stuff to live for, I'd think about it maybe. But
really, okay.
Well,
what if it was 100%?
I would love to see the future, because every time somebody asks, like, "Oh, if you could go anywhere in history, what would you see?" Like, I always want to go to the future. I would so much travel 100 years in the future and see something that amazes me, than travel 100 years in the past and go, "Huh, so that's what it was like."
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, like, you're traveling, quote unquote, to the future by basically just suspending your life, and then who's to say, like, as soon as you get unfrozen or you wake up or whatever, your body's not going to do the whole catch-up thing, and you're not going to actively, progressively age really quick.
Well, you just said it was 100%. I don't plan to be one of the guinea pigs for these. I was saying, if they perfected it, yeah, maybe I'm doing something like that. When it comes to anything like teleportation and cryogenic sleep, there's a few kinks they got to work out.
That'd be pretty funny to explain to your wife. Hey, honey, I signed us up for the cryo sleep. Tell your job you're going to be on hiatus for about 100 years.
I feel like the mental problem of that would be one of the biggest things I'm going to do. Because you imagine if you did have to go tell everyone, you're like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing, and you won't be alive when I wake up. Any of you.
I think that's one of the things, like, you wouldn't think about it, like, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is going to be weird. And then when you actually do wake up, it's going to be the whole, like, everything I know, everyone I know is gone.
Do we still speak English here?
Like, hello.
Do we still have food? Is everything I say offensive?
Well, I mean, even Idiocracy, look at that.
That's true. I mean, that doesn't seem too far off from plausibility anymore.
Oh, man. Well, okay. So, like, backtrack. What if they can use some of that technology to at least help you sleep through the night, where you just knock yourself out?
That I am all for. Like, I know people are going to start, if you got in this argument with people, they'd start jumping in the control and all these kind of things, bad things that could happen to you and blah, blah, blah.
What if a fire happens, you're not going to wake up?
But I feel like the same thing, of there'd have to be some fail-safes built in these things. If you make a sleep chamber in your house where you flip a switch and you're out cold for the night, it's not like there's not going to be something like, oh, there's a fire alarm going off, we better put something in to wake him up. Like, and I've always wondered the things that people have tried to think of, what you could actually learn if your brain could sleep, because we don't know the exact science behind it. If we all need sleep because our bodies have to reset, and a lot of people say, well, our brains and minds have to reset too, but your brain's going nonstop while you're asleep. And is it actually setting and resetting, or is it doing something else? And is there a way that you could plug something in or do something to where you're actually learning something? What if you could learn another language while you slept?
Oh, I mean, isn't that what some people do with the whole audio things, is, they try to do, I mean, in school, people try to listen to recordings so they can study that way, through the osmosis of sleep. Which most of the scientists have said most of that's a bunch of bunk. You don't remember most of the stuff that happens in your sleep. Same thing with most of your dreams, you forget about right away. But if there's a way they could make that connection for it, would it be possible? Would you want to do it? And what kind of side effects would something like that come from? Well, and I guess that's kind of what brought this up. Why I brought this up is because, one, sleep is very important to us, but when it starts messing with your mental stability in your life, is you got to kind of draw a line, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's one thing that science fiction has told us is, there's always some kind of downside to cryo sleep, to, the hyper sleep, everything like that. There's always something that can go wrong, no matter what the fail safes are. Mm-hmm. Where you wake up, your pod malfunctions, and you wake up, and then you have a group of a whole bunch of other people's pods that malfunction, but they all froze to death, inside their pod. It's like, whoa.
Or you have some friends that you get a sleep chamber, you think you're going to be asleep for 25 years, and we decided to pull a really elaborate hoax and have you asleep for like a week, but just... Not that I'd ever do that to you, I swear.
Yeah. Dude, you look the same. Oh, man. I mean, and even going back to the Fifth Element one, maybe I wouldn't do that. If there was no guarantee, or if there was a guarantee that nothing could go wrong, which I don't think they can. I mean, even with mattresses now, it's like...
Well, you can't guarantee that driving to the grocery store, nothing's going to go wrong.
True. Very, very true.
But I think about stuff of they're working on the whole brain interface type things, and how far off is a computer brain interface from some of these advances in sleep therapy. What if instead of a chamber, you could just get some sort of implant that connects to your nervous system, and when it's time to sleep, you're like, serotonin time.
Oh my God. Well, and that's one thing that's always, like, I've been interested in doing sleep studies because my sleep, even before, kids, my sleep has just been whack. Like, it's been weird.
Wiggity?
Yeah. So I've always been interested in sleep studies, but also at the same time, I'm like, I look at some of the sleep studies, I'm like, how can people sleep with all those wires attached to them?
It's not comfortable. I did one once, and it was very awkward.
Right? So, and that's always like, to me, it's always, with the science fiction, you're in a tube and they monitor it, they have all your vitals and everything like that. But nowadays, it's still the whole, like, let's stick this to your forehead, chest, back, and try not to roll around too much or else you're going to knock over the equipment.
My biggest problem when I did the sleep apnea thing, the wires I managed to deal with okay. It was that I had the mask on. They said, okay, you have to sleep on your back. I'm one of those people that I can't sleep on my back. Like, even if I fall asleep on my back, it's maybe an hour or two and I roll off of it, and it just doesn't happen. So they say, sleep on your back, and I'm like, well, you guys are getting some pretty skewed results because I am probably not going to sleep tonight. I can be exhausted if I lay on my back. There's just something about it, and I'm like, nope, can't happen.
Or if you're on your back, you'll do that quick doze, and then your body will just wake up, and you're like, all right, I'm not sleeping.
I hate those dreams.
But and that's another thing too, is even now, I wish that there was something, because I get so jealous of people sleeping on planes, and we've talked about this, with our my trip to Korea, your trip to Australia. You can sleep though. Me, it's just one of those ones. I remember being the only person awake on the plane, at least to my knowledge, because I looked around and everybody around me was asleep, and I started getting that irritable, like, I am so tired, I just want to sleep, but I can't sleep. I hate everybody on this plane because they're all sleeping, type of thing. And then when I landed, I was just like, I'm so tired. So it would be nice to be able to just like hit a button, or like, get in a pod on a plane and be like, all right, knock me out. We'll be in Korea in, to me, probably like 15 minutes. So let's do it.
Yeah, because maybe they just put something there where it's not like an instantaneous push of a button, but it creates the safe cycle. It releases the right, natural chemicals or whatever in this thing. That's okay. It's night time, and you've got a cool down time in it. Almost like put a computer in shutdown mode. You do something that signals everything to, okay, guys, close up shop here. Let's get all this. Go to the bathroom. Okay, we're good to go. And then you got like 5 or 10 minutes. Same thing. The wake up. Maybe it's not the instantaneous wake up, which doesn't solve the your sleep pod's on fire question, but for safe waking up of like, oh, we need to boot this guy up. It takes. Computers used to take a couple minutes to boot up. I'm sure we could figure a way to start up a human body in a few minutes safely, right?
I think that's called coffee. Well, the thing is even if you had something implanted or whatever that would release the melatonin or whatever, people are going to use it maliciously. You're going to go up to somebody and you're going to be like, tap. And all of a sudden you just see that person go, sit there in an argument with your boss or something, you just tap them on the neck.
Sorry, you just gave me a new dream.
It'd be like the Vulcan death pinch, except it's like sleepy night time. Go to sleep.
For like fingerprints or passcodes or something you have to do.
Right, you have to like do a certain Morse code to tap it.
Or, hey Google, put me to sleep.
Oh man.
Who's been messing with Dad's sleep schedule?
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Well, I mean, that even,
Sorry, my Google's trying to put me to sleep with lullabies now.
Oh, nice.
Hey Google, stop playing.
It listened.
Yeah.
But that's the thing too, is like even that could bridge into we can start controlling dreams, because that's another thing that sci-fi has done, where you implant your own dreams type of thing. But then there's that skewed reality, kind of like Total Recall, of like what's real and what's not, what's an implant and what's not. So that could lead some problems.
That's what I think about the same thing of trying to learn things. Where how does your brain differentiate reality versus things you're learning in your sleep type of stuff?
Yeah.
I honestly feel like the Cowboy Bebop story is probably one of the most realistic type of cryogenic freeze stories out there.
Enlighten us.
Well, Valentine, she's actually 77 years old, but only looks to be about 23 of this, and they got put in the cryogenic freeze after a space shuttle accident. So in there for 54 years in cryogenic suspension, but when she wakes up, she has a bunch of debt to pay that she accrued, but she has no means to pay anymore, and she's got total amnesia, so she doesn't remember stuff, so she spends most of the show trying to just piece together who she was, what her life was, but at the same time going through all that, and cryogenic freezing probably does not come cheap.
No, and like
so the
you said,
most likely, so let's try to freeze between 50 years, you wake up, and then you're 10 times worse than you were beforehand.
right, and like you said, the brain is constantly going, so is the cryogenic sleep just going to shut that down to like the minimal life support to where you're just like barely alive, or is your brain still going to be like aging and going, and then you wake up and you have amnesia and dementia because you have no idea what's going on. So
You got a 95-year-old brain and a 30-year-old body. What?
exactly. I mean, obviously we have a lot to still learn. I think sleep is one of the things that we still have a lot of advancements to make in it, especially with how people sleep at night. I think charging $1,000 for a mattress is ridiculous, but who knows? I remember being a kid, and the new technology in sleep was being able to jump on the bed and not spill a wine glass. So,
Oh yes, the individual coiled springs.
Yeah.
It's a big time.
and now they don't even have really springs anymore. So it's like, get rid of your box spring. You have these slats on your bed and a mattress.
And it's tough with the future too, because there's so many cool things that could be done with sleep, or maybe potentially could be done with sleep. But the fact that, back to your original point, any one of us could go fall asleep on a pile of rocks out back if we really needed to. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing that is forcing the advancement other than wanting to be able to send people to different planets in space.
And even still, that's one of those ones where that's still far off.
Yeah. That's not like, maybe next year we'll get that going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I kind of want to nap now. I don't know about you.
I know. I was talking about sleep. I was sitting there. It's like yawned halfway through this. I was like, maybe that's just what I need to do, is talk about sleep, and that'll put me down.
So you have our permission. You can do whatever you were going to do. Just put that on the back burner. Go lay down. Draw the curtains. Imagine a serene scene, and Derek and Bino wishing you a good night's rest.
We're going to start our own sleep audio.
Yeah, we could tell people stories of bed. Some people like that, right?
Here's a nice warm glass of milk. Grab your favorite blanket. Buckle up. It's time to get comfortable.
I could make that happen. Anyway, let us know what you think in the comments at Get Geekish. Sleep. What is something that we need to invent to make sleep better?
Or what's something that helps you sleep better? I mean, because there's a lot of people out there that are like, I take like 3 melatonin and I'm out. Now I've taken 3 melatonin and it doesn't do anything to me, but
Yeah, I feel like melatonin doesn't affect me. That's more tangents. Let us know in the comments what helps you sleep. And we'll talk to you next week. It's at Get Geekish.